Hello and welcome because it's time. After a month of waiting, it's time. It's time for a Todd Talk. Good Todd Talks, people listen, and if you don't, I'll put a shock to your system. So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are here. We are here at the precipice of the beginning of season 7 of Death Battle, a season of great change with 20 episodes. Sorry, 20 episodes over the course of the year, within the middle being DBX, but still get a lot of Death Battle every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. That's really cool. And I'm going to have to be on my toes for this because that means I'm going to be doing videos a lot sooner than I usually do, and my Todd Talks are going to be going up in number a lot. But I'm excited, and so let's get started off with this first episode, our season premiere, Miles Morales Spider-Man versus Static, also known as Static Shock. Let's begin, shall we? In the Earth known as 1610. No, not 616, 1610. Confused? I'll explain. Remember, this is a comic book universe, and so in comics there's a thing called the multiverse. And in the multiverse there are many different versions of Earth, and one of them is called 1610, referred to as the Ultimate Universe. Basically, a man named Brian Michael Bendis came along and said, you know what? Marvel's been going on for so long, we probably should do like a redo reboot world where not everything is the same, and the characters are kind of different, and it became one of the biggest successes in Marvel history. Seriously. And on this Earth was Spider-Man Peter Parker. And Peter Parker was everything you would expect from Parker, just a ultimate version of him, if you will, with new friends, new allies, new enemies, and so on and so forth. Eventually, though, Peter Parker died. Rest in peace. And when that happened, the world was without a Spider-Man. Or was it? Because in this world, there was also a kid named Miles Morales who happened to have an uncle named Aaron who was, let's just say, criminal. He was a criminal. Totally a criminal. And because of this, he got, let's just say, boarded by a spider that eventually bit Miles and injected him with what they called Oz. Oz was another attempt to replicate the Captain America Super Soldier Serum because that works so well every single time. And when this injected Miles, he started to get superpowers. Now, originally, Miles wanted nothing to do with it because he knew that this would put him in danger. He didn't want to endanger his family, etc., etc. But after Spider-Man, Peter Parker, died saving his family and realizing that he could have saved Peter Parker with his powers, he decided to take on the mantra with great power comes great responsibility, and he became Spider-Man. Kind of, because, he was kind of like fumbling for a bit, and like all the other heroes were not happy that another kid was running around calling himself Spider-Man, but eventually he impressed them enough, saved the day a couple of times, and was eventually brought into the Ultimates, which is the Ultimate Universe version of the Avengers, and was taught how to be a better Spider-Man, more or less. And since then, he has had numerous adventures, and this spans not just one universe, but two. Still confused? I'll get to it. You see, for the longest time, Miles Morales was on 1610. He was in the Ultimate Universe. He was the ultimate Spider-Man. And then this thing came around called Secret Wars. What was that? Well, basically, during a, how do I say this kind of gently? Okay, during a universe-ending event, a crisis, if you will, all the universes were dying, and more than that, certain Earths would actually overlap with each other in the universal bonds. I'm really trying to dumb this down, I promise. And when this happened, they literally breached one another. And when that happened, the characters of both the Earths would realize what was going on. And one world had to die, and one world had to live, else everything would die. So eventually, the last two Earths, obviously, were 616, the main Marvel universe, and 1610, the Ultimate Universe. And they know a nice big, hoo-ha came around. Tony Stark of the Ultimate Universe hit on Captain Marvel, the regular universe. She wasn't happy with that. I'll always remember that because it's like, wow, it's Tony Stark's a jerk on every universe. Anyway, but during this scuffle, our Reed Richards of the main Marvel universe had a plan to save a bunch of people, and Miles Morales actually got caught in this plan unintentionally, and so he was taken to another version of the universe created by Doctor Doom. I'm going to skip to the end, I promise. And eventually, Miles Morales helped rebuild the universe and the multiverse. And when that happened, the Ultimate Universe and the regular Marvel Universe merged. Miles Morales and Peter Parker were now on the same Earth, and they were both Spider-Man. Just different Spider-Man, but still Spider-Man. And through that, Miles Morales' adventures in the new, or the regular, let's call it regular, the regular Marvel Universe began. And because of that, he became a member of the Avengers. He became one of the founding members of the New Champions. He has had numerous adventures with Spider-Man. He's been in the Spider-Verse. He's even been into the Spider-Verse. And more. Now, if you remember the Spider-Man 2099 episode, Wiz and Boomstick know that it's unfair to compare all the Spider-Men together. And it's very, very true. And this is a really great example of that, because not unlike Miguel O'Hara, Miles has completely different powers from Spider-Man in certain cases. Let me explain them. Obviously, he's got super strength. He's got super speed. He's got super agility. He's got web shooters, which were originally the mechanical versions used by Peter Parker after he got them from Aunt-May and Gwen Stacy. Not Spider-Gwen, Gwen Stacy. That's another thing entirely. He also has, of course, the spider sense, but it's an enhanced version. I'll get to that, though. But his new abilities that really put him above Peter Parker Spider-Man is he has camouflage, where he can literally blend his entire body, including his costume, into perfect camouflage. So much so that even other Spider-Man can't see him, or even other super beings can't see him unless it's a complicated situation. It's camouflage. What do you want from me? And then the other thing is he's got venom blasts. That's right. He can shoot out the symbiote known as Venom. Oh, different venom blast. Okay. He has the ability to enhance his own bioelectricity into specialized electric blasts. I almost said electronics. That's another thing entirely. Electric blasts. He can do this, uses kind of like a taser, but he can also enhance it to do a mega blast, which can knock out foes instantly. It's really powerful. And if you've seen Into the Spider-Verse, you'll get this reference. Hey. Anyway, so another thing, going back to Spider Sense. So if you recall, the Spider Sense is the early warning system of Spider-Man, right? He can sense all danger around him, and his Spider Sense even gives him perfect 360-degree awareness, not like a spider's eyes, to let him know what's coming. With Miles, it's even more enhanced, which is already scary enough, all right? But apparently, Miles has the ability not just sense danger, but to kind of predict it from happening. Isn't that the same thing as a Spider Sense? No, Spider Sense is awareness. Miles can predict it. Let me explain. When in the Ultimate Universe, when Peter Parker was going to die, Miles, who had already been bitten at this point, his spider sense allowed him to sense that Peter Parker was going to die via Shocker. It was Electro. It was Electro, sorry. Via Electro. He could sense Electro was going to kill Spider-Man. He didn't know what it meant because he saw it in a dream. And then other times, his spider sense almost acts like precognition, like seeing the future. And thus, it makes him incredibly hard to hit. And then like I noted, he's got super strength, super endurance, super agility. He acts like Spider-Man just with a few enhancements. And of course, because this is a Spider-Man and Marvel universe, he has faced all sorts of threats, from your basic metahumans to gods, demons. He's fought Blackheart, the son of Mephisto, multiple times. He's fought electric villains like Zax, and he's fought Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, the Sinister Six. He's fought. It's the Marvel universe. You know who he's fought. Venom, Carnage, all of them. He's fought everyone he can possibly think of, and most times than not, he comes out on top. Especially when he's backed up by the Avengers and Champions and all of them. Now, his feats are legendary, but what makes him famous is his personality. Because not unlike the original Peter Parker, Miles Morales is just a kid you want to root for. He is, he didn't want these powers. He's just trying to help his family. His mom actually gets killed unintentionally because of him, and this basically makes his father disown him. And you can't help but root for Miles Morales, which is hilarious because when he was first announced, and it was announced he was half black, half Puerto Rican, a lot of people were like, "Oh my gosh, Marvel is just trying to make a black Spider-Man." And now we can't live without Miles. And Into the Spider-Verse is an Oscar-winning film. I'm just saying. So, Miles Morales is beloved, and to see him in Death Battle is an absolute thrill. Now, here's the problem, though. while it's true that Miles has been with the Ultimates, the Avengers, the Champions, etc., he's not actually had a lot of combat training. It's stated that he has had some training by Captain America and the Ultimates, but it's not been a lot. Nor has he been trained a lot by the Avengers or even the Champions. And by Champions, I do mean the current version with, Miss Marvel and Nova and young age Cyclops, don't get me started, and all the others, right? So he isn't exactly the best in combat. His abilities allow him to do more. And yet, multiple times against superior opponents, he just gets the floor wiped. Like, he went up against Red Goblin, which was Norman Osborn with the Carnage symbiote. This is horrifying to think about. He got destroyed. He has gone up against Venom at times and gotten destroyed. He's gotten beaten by Carnage and then infused with the Carnage symbiote. This was in the Absolute Carnage art that just recently happened. And he couldn't resist its powers, and then he got literally ripped out of it, got infected again, became a double agent of sorts. But anyway, he is beatable. And in one of my personal favorite panels when I was doing research on this, he was doing a paintball fight with the Champions. He used Miss Marvel to dodge an attack because his spider sense alerted him, and then he got cocky, and while he was gloating, Cyclops came up and shot him in the back with paintballs. And usually this will be something he can avoid. So yes, he can dodge bullets. Yes, he can dodge other projectiles, and he's durable enough to take a bunch of hits, but he's not invincible. And he's definitely, his spider sense can be tricked. Okay, and that's going to be a key point coming up. So, but still, despite that, he is one of the best Spider-Man versions out there, and there are a lot of them, obviously. And he can be called on to help out when you need him to. Moving on to Static, also known as Static Shock, but his comic name is Static. All right, the Static Shock thing was for the cartoon, which was awesome, but I digress. Static, aka Virgil Hawkins, was just your average, ordinary kid living up in Dakota, albeit in the worst part of Dakota, where gangs were rampant, violence was everywhere, and everyone had a side that they needed to choose. But for Virgil, he just wanted to live the best life he could. He was good at school, he was playing games with his friends, including his best friend Frida, and he was just doing his everyday thing. But like everyday life, it sucks, especially when it comes to school. And he started to get bullied. And one of the only people that would defend him was his best friend, I believe it was Larry, who was also a gang member. And so he realized that for Virgil to stay safe and to get rid of his bully problem, he needed to join his own gang, which was apropos because at the time there was an event going down that had basically all the gang members in Dakota coming together to fight one another for supremacy over the territory. Yeah, I believe it. Anyway, so the thing is that even though all the gangs knew about this, everyone else knew about this too, which isn't exactly the best thing when you're trying to do a throwdown. But the police knew about it, the mayor knew about it, and so they decided, hey, we're going to just interfere with this in our own way. We're going to throw this special tear gas, and when it explodes, it's going to tag every single gang member who was there that night so we can find them and arrest them. Brilliant plan, one problem. It was laced with a thing called quantum juice, because that sounds so safe. And this quantum juice didn't tag the gang members, they killed the gang members, with about 10% difference being that they were blessed with super abilities, aka superpowers, aka they became what is known as bang babies. And since Virgil was there, albeit to try and get away from the mess, not be involved in it, he even threw away a gun, which they beautifully showed in the animated cartoon. Seriously, it's a great series, go watch it. Because of that, he too was infected with this quantum juice. And when he awoke, he realized that he had abilities. Mainly, he had electromagnetic slash electrokinetic slash electro-generating powers. And he became Static. Shock. No, just Static. Just Static. As Static, he has a wealth of abilities. He can generate blasts as fast as lightning. He can use his electricity to grab metal objects and manipulate them, like Magneto, like they said in the Death Battle preview. He can use electromagnetic energy to allow himself to hover, to fly via his static saucer. He can even do what he calls a static cling. He can infuse an object with electromagnetic energy, with a few exceptions, of course, and make it so that you could stick to it and can't get out of it. Cool, huh? And that's just like the top layer of his abilities when it comes to being a Bang Baby, which is good because there are a lot of very bad Bang Babies in Dakota, and just about all of them were trying to get power. So Static became Dakota's #1 superhero, alongside ones like Hardware and Dusk, and they did their best to fight off all the Bang Babies, and thankfully, Static is no joke. His abilities allow him to do some really cool things and take down a lot of Bang Babies. And he has via Hot Streak and Rubber Band Man and Holocaust. Who names a villain Holocaust? Okay, I joke. I know there's a lot worse names than that. Uh, Commando X and so many others. And this was just in the Dakotaverse, all right? Because Static is not a DC character. This is a common misconception. Static is not a DC Comics character originally. He was originally from Milestone Media, right? And then DC bought out Milestone, and during a crisis, he got merged with the DC Universe. And in this version, he was the same Static, he had the same powers, except he got to be a member of the Teen Titans. And through that, he's battled a whole bunch of DC villains. He's been a part of major crossover events, including Final Crisis. He's been part of the New 52 in a series that was wrongfully canceled after 8 issues. And he's had a lot of adventures over there. Now, one of the things that definitely separates Static from others is that you think you know what his powers are, but you really don't. One of his, because he's so infused with electromagnetic energy, he's basically a part of the Earth's electromagnetic field. What does that mean? It means that he can basically not only just draw energy from that, he can draw energy from any electric source of anything. Generator, a battery, a building, even. And technically, I think he's drawn it from people at one time, but I can't confirm that. Also, he can sense electromagnetic energy that is all around them and see in various wavelengths of light and sound because it's all derived from electricity. In the New 52, he noted that he could see the entire electromagnetic spectrum, including UV light. And through this means that he can see anybody based just on the electrons in their body. What's that? Electrons? Oh, yeah. Let me tell you something else. He is able to actually manipulate the electrons in your body. That's right. He is able to literally use the electric energy within your molecules to knock you out. And he's done it at least on one occasion, which means it can totally be used in death battle. So, yeah. He's pretty cool, and he's done some incredible feats. Not only has he gone up against the Justice League via things like the cartoon show, which obviously is not the best representation, but it can be backed up by certain other things. He has fought some of the best fighters in the DC universe, which I'll get to in a minute. And one of my favorite things, he was captured by Jericho, who had controlled Cyborg, and he was put in this room that was meant to contain him, right? Except that Static was like, dude, you can't contain me. And he literally unleashed all of his energy out, right? And when this happened, it literally filled up the entire Titan's tower, okay? Which is, hundreds of feet tall and wide. And it literally shut down everything and overloaded Cyborg. That's how much power Virgil has. And in another case, his abilities, he has like mental resistances to mind control. He was able to resist the anti-life equation. I mean, seriously, he was being controlled to do a superhero fight club, basically. And even though the equation worked on him some of the time, he was able to fight back and make it so he couldn't be controlled. And then he lashed out and killed a lot of people. And, it was Final Crisis. Death was allowed back then. So Static has an incredible amount of abilities. Now, the curious thing is that he does have a certain weakness to electricity, but it's a specific kind of electricity. All right. For example, if he gets struck by a lightning bolt, he can't be hurt. However, if he is struck by a Bang Baby that is also full of quantum juice, which was what, again, infected them to have superpowers in the first place, that kind of electricity can hurt them. Otherwise, he's basically completely resistant to electricity as a whole. So, and he's smart. He is so smart that he was able to not only work at smart labs, yes, work at smart labs, or only the smart go, work at Star Labs. He was able to help the Teen Titans diagnose a molecular issue with Kid Flash. This is New 52 Kid Flash. The first Kid Flash. New 52 is complicated, all right? So he was able to help Kid Flash with his molecular disorder that was going on because of his powers. He's able to use his brains in combat to figure out how to beat people, including people who his abilities should have no effect against, including Rubber Band Man. He beat a tar monster with electricity, which is technically impossible, and so on and so forth. So he will literally put a shock to your system, and it's going to hurt. So who wins between Miles Morales and Static Shock? It's Static. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be saying, wait a minute, the spider sense makes it so he can't be hit. Okay, as I've already elaborated, the spider sense can be fooled. And if you don't believe me, how many times has Peter Parker died? Okay, including in the main universe and the Ultimate Universe. How many times has Spider-Man, taken a hit, taken a blast, almost died? The spider sense is one of the greatest gifts of superheroes that a superhero can have, but doesn't make him invincible. Multiple Spider-Men have died in the making of these comics. All right, and even though it's true that Miles is more like precognition, he still gets hit, he still gets hurt, and things still happen. A great example of this is in the Champions series, the second rebooted version. There was anyway. There was a fight going on in the Middle East, and he was saving some people, and his spider sense went off, but he couldn't react to it in time to save his teammates, and because of that, Miss Marvel and certain others died. So he actually had to make a deal with Mephisto, never a good idea, to bring them back. And in the result, he unintentionally let someone else die that he had saved in the previous timeline, and this devastated him mentally, so much so that he actually quit the Champions and almost quit being a hero. And his mental status isn't exactly the most stable. He has been rocked multiple times. He's tried to give up being Spider-Man multiple times, especially after he lost his mom. And even though he kept coming back, he isn't the most experienced, even though, yes, he's fought like the entire Marvel universe and even people like Galactus, though obviously he didn't beat Galactus. That's another thing entirely. And while he is a brilliant kid, he's not as intelligent as you might think, and not as intelligent as the Into the Spider-Verse version might let you believe. But yes, he is smart, but not as smart as like Peter Parker or certain other Avengers. The other problem here is that Static is so powerful and has such a better area of effect that it's more than likely he's going to overwhelm Miles. And if you think, well, wait a minute, what about the spider sense? Let me tell you about Final Crisis. In Final Crisis, as noted, he was injected with the anti-life equation, which made him basically a pawn of Darkseid. And he was meant to fight other superheroes. One of these superheroes that he fought was Rose Wilson, aka Ravager. And yes, Wilson as in the daughter of Slade Wilson, Deathstroke. And in this version of Rose Wilson, she was injected with the same super serum that made Deathstroke who he is, including her ability to have heightened senses, including one that is actual precognition. Miles is like precognition. Rose is precognition, which is something even her father does not technically have. And because of that, she was able to take on Static. But she still lost. He went to him and his untethered, I'm going to kill you mentality, not only injured Rose despite her precognition, he beat her with her precognition. So if Static could be, and remember, Rose, daughter of Deathstroke, is one of the best hand-to-hand fighters in the DC universe. She is, I don't know if I can say she's on par with her father, but she is absolutely deadly. All right? And so if he could take out Rose, who has been, good training, has precognition with the Titans and everything else, I'm pretty sure he can take down Miles. And there's the other factors too. So there's a squirrel outside my... That is a very active squirrel. What is the squirrel doing? I don't know. Anyway, squirrel. Squirrel! But another thing here is that Static will not be affected by the Venom Blast because he can absorb electricity. And at times, he can actually even use his own electricity to heal his body, including reattaching a severed arm. New 52. It was weird. All right. But he can also, so the Venom Blast will not work. It's not, and even though, yes, the Venom Blast does say it works against those with genetic mutations, which is definitely what the quantum juice is, Static is still immune to all electricity outside of the Bang Babies. And this is one of those cases where you literally can't say that the DC Universe's form of genetic mutation is the same as the Marvels. All right, it's entirely different. It's kind of like the Infinity Gauntlet, kind of sorta, or Ace versus Natsu, where Ace is fire, Natsu can eat fire. Can he eat Ace? We can't say that. Or Wonder Woman lifting Thor's hammer. More than likely she can, but we can't say that for sure because that's fan fiction. So even though it should be plausible that the Venom Blast could affect Static, more than likely it can't. So that's another one of his major weapons, which means the only things he's got to beat Static with are his strength, which is good, his speed, which is good, his agility, which is great, and his spider sense. Except that Static can actually pin Miles to a wall. That's right. All he needs is to static cling like a brick wall and then knock Miles into it. He's stuck. The static cling has actually been able to stop the Flash in the animated series to an extent. And obviously the Flash is much faster than Miles. And because of that, then he could just finish him off. Not to mention, because of his mastery of metal objects, he can literally just overwhelm Miles and his spider sense because he has to predict all these potentially hundreds of objects hitting him. And they're going to do the battle in New York or something, right? They wouldn't go to a remote area. That's unfeasible for both of them because they both live in big cities. And then, as many like to point out, the static saucer is used as a shield and as a weapon, including using it as a buzzsaw that can cut through metal. And if it can cut through metal, it can cut through Miles. So, in conclusion, Static can beat the spider sense. He can go toe-to-toe with Miles. Static is smarter than Miles. I would bet a lot of money on that, including the fact that he actually uses his science in combat to try and beat foes. Miles doesn't. He has better area of effect. He has a much longer range, and he has ways he can take out both the spider sense because he's beaten precognition. He can find Miles no matter where he is because he can see in all spectrums of light. He can manipulate his molecules, and he's not affected by the Venom Blast. So honestly, while I would definitely say that Spider-Man Miles Morales is, I would say, probably a little more endurant, faster, and more agile, Static is just going to overwhelm him. So my pick is Static. No, just Static. Just Static. So with that, I'm in this episode of Todd Talk. Who do you think is going to win this season 7 premiere of Death Battle? Miles Morales or Static? Static! I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, once Death Battle comes out, I will totally be doing my reaction video. It'll just be on a Monday instead of a Wednesday. I miss having it on Wednesdays already. Anyways, so I thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I know you were listening, and I'll see you around.